What sets Claude Code apart from everything else? It's the fact that it's genuinely programmable. This programmability is what gives it its incredible power. Unlike other AI coding assistants, Claude Code was built from the ground up to be completely adaptable and customizable. This flexible architecture allows Claude Code to mold itself to any development workflow and handle tasks in ways that are perfectly suited to your unique requirements. The degree of customization it provides is unmatched. You won't find this level of flexibility in alternatives like Cursor. Thanks to this thoughtful design, developers have been able to configure Claude Code in truly impressive ways. Let me walk you through some fascinating implementations that demonstrate just how versatile Claude Code has become. Here's something incredible. Someone took the brilliant step of converting Claude Code into a fully operational MCP. This isn't just a proof of concept, it's a completely functional MCP implementation that blew my mind. I never thought anyone would approach Claude Code from this angle. Let me demonstrate this in action. I'll close this interface and reopen it to show you the Taxi app prototype that's loaded here. Now, let's request the Claude MCP to modify the Taxi app file and switch the primary color from yellow to blue. As I send this command, watch how it communicates with Claude Code as an MCP server. It processes the color change request along with the accompanying instructions. Now, I should mention that I've been experimenting with this setup for some time, and it actually processed the color change during my earlier testing session. But let me show you the results anyway. You can observe that when I refresh the page, the color scheme has been updated. Let's push it further and request some additional modifications. Again, you'll notice it's interfacing with Claude Code. The response we receive comes directly from Claude Code and gets integrated into Cursor. We're now working with Claude Code's output seamlessly. Looking at the current result, you can see it now has a material design aesthetic rather than the neon styling we started with. I see two compelling applications for this approach. While it might seem unconventional, I've encountered numerous situations, particularly when developing user interfaces, where I've attempted to implement features that Cursor simply couldn't execute properly. This limitation stems from the model's context window constraints. The same Claude model has varying context limitations based on its version. For instance, Claude 4 here operates with a 120k token limit, whereas Claude Code has access to its complete context window of approximately 200k tokens. This difference is substantial. Whenever Cursor hits its limits, you can delegate the task to Claude Code, and it will handle the challenge effectively. You might suggest using Claude Code's IDE functionality instead, but that creates a problem. Cursor loses track of the changes made, and this context disconnect isn't ideal. With this MCP approach, Cursor retains full awareness of all modifications, creating a smooth workflow that bridges both tools effectively. The second application involves the Claude desktop application, which I use regularly. I find it excellent for brainstorming, and the Canvas feature is particularly valuable. When you create something like a UI component, you can extract elements from the Claude desktop app and request their implementation through prompts. Claude Code will take your desktop creation and implement it in your development environment. For example, it just produced this elegant component for me. Now I can ask the Claude MCP right here to implement it, and Claude Desktop provides complete context, making the task effortless. We all recognize that Claude Code leads the pack in AI agents. But what if you want to harness the superior agent architecture while using a different model? Say you want to experiment with alternatives like Gemini or the new Kimi K2, which matches Claude Code's performance while being significantly more cost-effective. Here's your solution. I found this tool called Claude Code Router, and it does exactly what its name suggests. This utility enables you to work with multiple models from various providers. You can tap into Gemini, OpenAI models, or even Kimi K2 model. This capability is genuinely remarkable. Scrolling down reveals their supported built-in providers, DeepSeek, Gemini, and OpenRouter. I'll demonstrate using OpenRouter to access the Kimi K2 model, which requires an OpenRouter API key. The setup process is simple and straightforward. First, ensure Claude Code is installed on your system. Then copy the installation command, paste it into your terminal, and it will install the tool globally. Next, you'll need to configure the config.json file. You'll have to create this file manually, or you can use the command I used, which automatically creates the necessary folder structure. Navigate to the folder and open it in Cursor. Initially, the file will be empty. To populate it correctly, they provide a sample file containing all the required fields. When you examine the example, you'll see all supported providers listed with their complete configurations. Simply copy the sections relevant to your setup. In my configuration, I retained only the open router block and removed the other provider configurations. However, there are two critical sections you must preserve: the router block and the block containing your API key and host information. Here's what needs modification: insert your open router API key, then add the model identifier. This is the KIMIC2 model name. And regardless of which model you choose, ensure you use the complete correct name. I obtained mine from the Open Router documentation. In the router section, include the provider name followed by the full model identifier. Once your configuration is finalized, navigate to your target directory where you want to launch this modified Claude Code and type seeker code to start. The system will detect your API configuration and you'll see confirmation about the overridden settings. This verifies it's now operating with KimiSK2 as the underlying model. You might encounter an error message. This typically occurs when using both a pro account and API simultaneously, creating conflicts. I've verified that the system will still function with the KimiK2 model. The first time you initialize using the CCR command, you'll see a menu asking about custom API keys. Don't decline, select yes to proceed with your configured key. Let me demonstrate with a straightforward request. I've asked it to build the taxi app prototype you saw at the beginning of this video. As you can observe, it's processing the request. You'll notice the response time is slower than usual. This is characteristic of the KimiK2 model, but given the substantial cost reduction and equivalent performance quality, it's an excellent compromise. You've seen it before, but here's the output it generated for us. The truly exciting aspect is that you now have access to the world's premier coding agent with complete control over your model selection. So here's Claude Flow, a project created by someone who has contributed numerous innovative solutions over the years. As I explored this project, I learned it enables Claude to create multiple instances of itself to execute a single task, completing it much more efficiently. For example, assign it the task of building a REST API, and Claude Flow will distribute the work across multiple instances, completing it as rapidly as possible. It's fundamentally about having multiple agents working together for efficient task completion. Initially, I questioned its utility because Claude Code already implements a multi-agent system internally, spawning multiple agents for different tasks. But then I discovered the HiveMind feature, and this is where it becomes truly fascinating. To utilize it, you need Claude Flow properly configured first. I mention this because for optimal functionality, you must use a command that activates bypass mode. This isn't ideal since you can't predict what Claude Flow might do in that mode. It could operate outside your designated repository or even delete system files. Some caution is definitely warranted here. The author actually suggests using GitHub Codespaces, which is a more complex setup. But returning to HiveMind, let me illustrate what I mean. When you want to initialize it, you use this startup command. If you want to begin with a specific project identifier, you can do that as well, just as they've demonstrated here. Each swarm or hive, as the author terms it, handles a specific feature of your application. So if you're developing an operating system, you assign that to a swarm or hive and implement it methodically. Where HiveMind truly excels is in its architecture. There's a queen-led structure where a queen agent coordinates the others, and all agents share the same contextual understanding. Memory management is handled exceptionally well. Right here you can see the complete file system layout. Everything from memory to coordination has been carefully managed. The remarkable thing about this HiveMind is that since these are sessions, you receive a session ID upon creation. You can resume that session ID later, meaning you can continue working on the same feature without restarting. Your multi-agent system remains preserved, and you can pick up from wherever you left off. One area where I felt it was insufficient, especially for comprehensive project development, is the lack of a clear starting point or established workflow. I could execute the swarm for individual features, as I showed you, but there wasn't a proper built-in process to guide the development flow. I believe this is primarily because it's still under active development and not yet feature complete. But once it is, and once a clear workflow is established, I'll definitely create a dedicated video on this because it's genuinely worth exploring in depth. There's also an excellent repository called Awesome Claude Code. It's a curated collection of command files, workflows, and tools specifically for Claude Code. It contains everything you need: community workflows, useful Claude Code tools, and many resources we've showcased in previous videos. You'll also discover Claude Code hooks and custom commands. It's an invaluable resource, and I'll include the link below. Similar to the Claude Code customizations I demonstrated earlier, this repository offers many additional options to explore. It's incredibly practical. Browse through it, identify what interests you, and experiment with it to see if it enhances your workflow. You probably already know that Claude Code integrates with Cursor and other IDEs. When you type Claude, it initializes and provides a side panel where you can use Claude Code, and it can access error information from Cursor. It functions like a conversational version of Claude Code. But I've never been particularly fond of this chat interface. The experience feels lacking to me. However, I recently found something exceptional called Claude Code Chat. It's essentially a dedicated chat interface specifically designed for Claude Code. The installation is straightforward through the extensions panel in either Cursor or VS Code. Simply open extensions, search for Claude Code Chat, and you'll locate the extension you need. You can select different models, and when you activate thinking mode, you also have the option to adjust the thinking intensity level. The integration blends naturally into the Cursor UI, creating a unified experience. All standard features are available, including plan mode and / commands. It's truly a comprehensive solution that enhances your development workflow. While I've showcased other interfaces previously, such as web UIs that enabled Claude Code usage on mobile devices, those were quite basic and lacked custom command support. This extension, however, provides a thorough solution. If you enjoy using Claude Code within Cursor, this extension offers an excellent way to elevate that experience. For VS Code users, it's a robust free option that's definitely worth exploring. That concludes this video. If you'd like to support the channel and help us continue creating content like this, you can do so by subscribing and watching the entire video. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.